In 1970, in a dimly lit control room, tension hung thick as the crew silently tracked their Soviet quarry. Sonar pings echoed softly, revealing only fragments of the underwater landscape. Experienced submariners moved with practiced efficiency, their faces lit by the soft glow of instrument panels. This underwater shadowing was familiar, a delicate dance they'd performed countless times while gathering intelligence in the frigid North Pacific. USS Tautog, a Sturgeon-class submarine engineered for stealth and armed with powerful torpedoes, was a hidden observer at 292 feet long and 4,800 tons submerged. Her subject, the K-108, a Soviet Navy Echo II-class guided missile submarine nicknamed Black Lila. Both submarines, powered by nuclear reactors, knew an unexpected encounter could escalate Cold War tensions with unthinkable consequences. As the operation continued, pinpointing K-108's position became increasingly challenging. Erratic sonar readings suggested it was directly above, then suddenly far off. The captain's brow furrowed as he studied the confusing data. Something wasn't right. For a moment, it seemed as if the ocean itself was holding its breath. Then, without warning, a deafening screech of metal on metal, followed by a violent lurch that sent men sprawling. In an instant, the controlled calm of a routine mission had erupted into chaos. While airplanes dominated World War II, there's no doubt submarines became the key weapon of the Cold War. Early-stage satellite technology was not yet advanced enough to provide detailed reconnaissance. As a result, submarines could approach Soviet shores undetected and gather crucial intelligence. Their stealth allowed them to shadow enemy vessels and monitor communications, often crossing maritime boundaries. The most renowned were ballistic missile submarines. Models like the Ohio-class and Soviet Delta-class carried nuclear warheads for deterrence, or, should the mission call for it, to ensure mutually assured destruction. Though ballistic missile submarines garnered worldwide attention due to their strategic role, attack submarines operated more discreetly. Designed to hunt and sink enemy submarines and ships, their history remains largely unknown. Many former submariners report taking immense risks, venturing into perilous waters near enemy shores to eavesdrop on Soviet communications, photograph naval installations, and track fleet movements. Sometimes this led to tense encounters. According to one sailor, quote, "There was a kind of tacit understanding on both sides. They knew we were out there, trying to learn what we could about them, and we knew they were doing the same thing. And if you got in somewhere they didn't want you to be, you got your nose bloodied." These underwater duels, characterized by cat-and-mouse chases and high-stakes maneuvers, had minimal room for error. Yet the inevitable sometimes occurred. One such attack submarine was USS Tautog, a Sturgeon-class submarine. At 292 feet in length, she displaced approximately 4,800 tons when submerged. A single S-5W nuclear reactor driving one shaft propelled her to a maximum speed of 20 knots, both on the surface and underwater. This nuclear heart gave her nearly unlimited range and endurance, constrained only by crew provisions. Her class's design featured a teardrop-shaped hull, meticulously crafted to minimize hydrodynamic drag and noise. Combined with cutting-edge sound-dampening techniques, this made her exceptionally quiet. Commissioned on March 17, 1968, amid Cold War tensions, Tautog honed her skills in numerous anti-submarine warfare exercises and surveillance missions. Her crew of about 12 officers and 95 enlisted men mastered the submarine sonar systems, sophisticated for the time, including passive and active arrays capable of pinpointing enemy vessels with razor-sharp precision. The submarine bristled with 4 21-inch torpedo tubes for defense and offense, ready to launch Mark 48 torpedoes against both surface ships and submarines. Since at least the summer of 1969, Tautog commonly prowled the North Pacific near the town of Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky on the Kamchatka Peninsula. This Soviet naval stronghold was a crucial hub for missile-armed submarine operations in the Pacific. U.S. Navy submarines, including the Sturgeon-class model, frequently patrolled these waters, gathering vital intelligence on Soviet naval activities. That summer, Tautog and others embarked on a high-stakes surveillance mission in the North Pacific. A critical test of new cruise missiles was about to be launched from a Soviet Echo-2-class nuclear cruise missile submarine. The operation's goal was to unravel the mysteries of Soviet technological capabilities. A year later, Tautog and her crew still lurked in these contested waters. There, they would be put to the ultimate test. On June 20th, 1970, the USS Tautog attack submarine was engaged in a covert mission near the Soviet naval base on the Kamchatka Peninsula, with the objective to trail the K-108 Soviet Navy Echo-2-class guided missile submarine nicknamed Black Lila. Within this dangerous covert chase, below the surface of the northern Pacific, all of Tautog's officers and enlisted men were acutely aware of the extraordinary dangers involved. Both submarines derived their power from nuclear reactors and carried weapons of immense destructive capability, adding to the unforgiving nature of the deep sea. For hours, the American submarine had been shadowing her noisy, nearly 100 feet larger and cumbersome prey, likely returning from a lengthy patrol. The two submarines were in extremely close proximity, with both aware of each other's presence, but not entirely sure of where the other one was. At times, unbeknownst to them, they were within mere feet of each other. The Soviet sub's routine maneuvers included executing U-turns and pausing to listen for potential threats. Previously, the Terrible T, as the Tautog was nicknamed, had effortlessly countered these moves by reducing speed and allowing natural ocean sounds to mask her presence. However, that day would be different. When the Soviet missile sub suddenly turned around to check if it was being followed, whether due to a hint of danger detected by Soviet sonar operators or the captain's frustration at being potentially tailed, the 6,000-ton Russian submarine suddenly changed course and accelerated towards Tautog. All of a sudden, the sub was coming, screaming at them. Following the aggressive turn, silence enveloped the American submarine. The sudden maneuver left them wondering if this was merely a scare tactic or the prelude to a catastrophic collision. Tautog, however, was at a severe disadvantage in pinpointing K-108's exact position, as new depth-finding hydrophones had not yet been installed. At times, the hydrographic equipment aboard Tautog registered zero distance between the submarines, a chilling indication of their perilous proximity. Suddenly, Tautog's hydrophone operators reported that the Soviet K-108 had risen near the surface, unknowingly positioning herself directly above them. The crew's hearts continued to race, and the trace showing Black Lila's distance vanished from their sonar screens. To the operators, this meant the Soviet sub was now diving. Just as the captain began to warn of the dangerously close contact, the sonar operator's voice cut through, quote, "Contact at 500 yards and closing fast." In a terrifying instant, K-108 slammed belly first into the top of Tautog's sail. The impact confirmed their worst fears. The Soviet vessel had indeed been descending from directly above. The collision produced a bone-chilling screech as Black Lila's massive propellers tore through the side of Tautog's sail. The sudden and tremendous impact momentarily rolled the 4,800-ton Tautog onto her side, plunging the interior into utter chaos. Off-duty sailors were violently thrown from their bunks, some crashing into bulkheads, equipment, or each other. Tools and loose items spilled from lockers and clattered across the tilting decks. Even the mess area was affected. Containers burst open, splattering walls and floors. As alarms blared and emergency lights flickered, crew members scrambled to their stations, fighting against the disorienting angle of the submarine. The air filled with a loud blend of shouts, metallic clangs, and the groans of the pressurized hull. Yet, in what many would later describe as nothing short of a miracle, all 115 crew members of Tautog emerged from their ordeal physically unscathed, though shaken to their core. But the Soviets seemed to have not been so lucky. Following the collision, the Terrible T sonar operators only initially detected an eerie silence. Tension mounted in the control room as they strained to hear any sign of the Soviet submarine. Suddenly, the sonar team picked up a series of terrifying noises, described chillingly like popping popcorn. The still dizzy crew, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of instrument panels, listened to what they interpreted as the Soviet submarine breaking apart under the crushing pressures of the deep ocean. Audio recordings captured a symphony of creaks, groans, and sharp cracks that seemed to last an eternity. Then, abruptly, every noise ceased. Tautog and her crew searched tirelessly for half a day, finding no trace of its former adversary. According to a former crew member, quote, "We turned completely around and just listened. Nothing. Then we came up slowly. We listened and listened again. Nothing. We came up to periscope depth and looked and waited and looked and looked, and nothing." As the battered Terrible T proceeded away from the site of the incident, everyone aboard her crew was absolutely certain that the Echo II-class K-108 they'd been trailing only a day before was now at the bottom of the ocean. Upon the submarine's arrival at Pearl Harbor, a startling discovery was made. A significant piece of one of K-108's propellers was found lodged in her sail, providing tangible evidence of the violent encounter. A team of Navy investigators then meticulously pieced together the sequence of events and concluded that the Soviet sub's massive screws had collided with Tautog's steel sail, likely resulting in catastrophic damage to K-108's propulsion system. The damage or loss of a screw, propeller, or critical seals would have allowed seawater to flood its engine room, sealing the submarine's fate. Audio recordings from Tautog corroborated this theory, capturing the haunting sound of a runaway turbine aboard K-108, no longer coupled to its propeller, vividly painting a picture of the sub's final moments. Yet, the world would remain oblivious to USS Tautog's close call. The encounter had occurred at a delicate juncture for the Nixon administration, which was cautiously extending diplomatic feelers toward the Kremlin, eventually paving the way for détente. The potential sinking of a submarine and the loss of 100 Soviet sailors threatened to derail these nascent talks before they could even begin. The June incident drew no response from the Soviet government, sparking speculation in Western intelligence circles. Some theorized that Soviet leaders were unaware of their submarine's fate, lost in the ocean's vastness. Others, however, suspected a calculated silence, with the Kremlin burying the incident to avoid admitting a naval blunder or compromising operations. Because of the silence from both sides, this underwater drama would remain buried in the depths of Cold War secrecy for decades. Not long after the summer 1970 event, Nixon's efforts bore fruit, and the United States and the Soviet Union agreed to the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, a treaty that limited strategic ballistic missile launchers, marking the beginning of a series of arms control agreements. Yet, beneath the waves, just like it had been since the early submarine era, the underwater chess game continued. Both superpowers still deployed them, equipped with long-range nuclear missiles, all across the world's oceans. After the collision with the Soviet submarine K-108, the submarine USS Tautog continued to serve with distinction in the United States Navy. However, the encounter left an indelible mark on her, as her sail was permanently bent at a 2-degree angle, making dry docking problematic, a reminder of her close call. Throughout the rest of her career, the Terrible T continued performing as she did before the incident, prowling the depths, tracking Soviet naval activities in the Pacific, and conducting covert operations throughout numerous patrols. Despite constant updates, time eventually caught up with the veteran submarine, and USS Tautog was decommissioned on March 31, 1997, after nearly 3 decades of service. By then, a newspaper had already broken the story of the collision, cracking the surface of this long-held secret. It wasn't until 1999 that a book revealed the full, startling details. As it turned out, following the accidental collision with Tautog, the Soviet Echo II-class submarine, rapidly taking on water, was salvaged at the very last minute by a tugboat, and she and her crew safely returned to Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky base, sporting a badly damaged starboard propeller. In an official interview, K-108 skipper, Captain Boris Bogdasarian, confirmed that just like USS Tautog, there were no casualties aboard the Echo-class vessel. With this revelation, The June 1970 collision case was finally closed. This incident, long one of the most closely guarded secrets of both nations, highlights the covert, often perilous nature of Cold War underwater warfare. A silent conflict whose echoes, in many ways, still resonate today.